Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Hello. Hi there. Oh, this is going to be so much fun. My name's Jessica Clark. I have the extreme honor of walking you through what is going to be an absolutely spectacular evening. A little while ago, I spoke with Dr. Mandela and Queenie, her daughter. They are really neat. We're going to sit here and talk in a little bit. But as you make your way in here, I want you to know, one, you're making history. I know, right? Is that neat or what? Here's how, go ahead, you can clap, that's good. Here's how you're making history. We are celebrating Nelson Mandela's 101st birthday tomorrow. Tonight is the kickoff event for the Nelson Mandela International Day, Jacksonville. It is the first time that the city of Jacksonville has celebrated this particular event. And really, I should say observed, because I was told by somebody it's not a holiday. It is a time to think about what you can do in your community. So it is a time to observe, but you know what? We're gonna have fun too, because this is a birthday party. I don't know if you knew you were coming to a birthday party, but it's a birthday party, all right? So I want to just say a special hello, give a warm welcome, and please help me do this to our esteemed guest of honor, Nelson Mandela's daughter and granddaughter. The granddaughter's name is Queenie. Her mother's name is Makaziwi, and they are both here with us tonight. Please welcome them. I just love them already. And I just met them maybe an hour ago or so. Of course, tonight is so special because one of the issues that we're really lifting up when it comes to social justice is re-entry into society from prison and how to do that successfully. Operation New Hope is doing a really good job at it. It isn't, yeah, go ahead and clap. They are. You're nodding. They are. It is an issue that crosses the party lines. Now, you know there aren't many issues that cross party lines, right? I mean, almost name anything, and there is an argument for and against it. But this issue is so important that both sides have said, we're together. We want to make our communities, our nation better by getting people out of prison, not having them live lives that go back to prison, and get them on the right track. To illustrate this tonight about how it's crossing party lines, we have two guests who couldn't make it because they're a little busy, and they are Al Lawson and John Rutherford. One's Republican, one's Democrat, but they agree on this issue. So we're going to play now a video message that they taped yesterday for us.
This year, a special celebration of Nelson Mandela International Day is coming to my hometown of Jacksonville, Florida, and we could not be prouder. We are honored to host Nelson Mandela's daughter, Dr. Makaziwi Mandela, and his granddaughter, Queenie Mandela, to celebrate the life of a man who changed the way the world sees race and criminal justice. We also recognize the work of Reflecting Freedom and Operation New Hope, two organizations separated by an ocean but joined together in their fight for restorative justice. As the former sheriff of Jacksonville, I thank Dr. Mandela for her lifelong dedication to a fair criminal justice system that reduces recidivism by giving opportunity to formerly incarcerated citizens. Thank you for all you do to make the world a better place.
Hello, I'm Congressman Al Lawson, and I would like to welcome Dr. Mandela to Jacksonville and to the state of Florida. It's a real honor to have you to visit, especially on this occasion where it would have been the 101st birthday of your father. We are still in the struggle, and your father, President Mandela, was one that stood for human rights, not only in South Africa, but around the world. His presence is still with us every day as we refer to him. Today in Congress, we was talking about human rights and freedom, which is exactly what President Mandela preached for many, many years. Again, I would like to welcome you to the state of Florida. This certainly is a big day in Jacksonville for all of us to have you here to work on those issues that is so prevalent and so important across this country and other countries throughout the world. Thanks again for having you, Dr. Mandela, and your daughter visit us in the Jacksonville area.
That's really neat for both of them to do that. And so at this point, we also want to just thank a few of our distinguished guests who, they're not extinguished, believe me, they're alive and kicking. You know you slip up like that too sometimes. I just did it early on in the program. Okay, so some of our distinguished guests, the City Council representatives Matt Carlucci, Scott Wilson, Jacoby Pittman, and Rory Diamond. Also, Democratic Minority Leader and State Senator Audrey Gibson, the Honorable Judge Tim Corrigan, State Attorney Melissa Nelson, and Public Defender Charlie Kofer. Representatives from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, Dr. Alicia Scott Ford, Deidre, Carey, and Lisa Hill. Thank you so much for being here. Also, what a neat place to be. So we want to thank the Jaguars Foundation for opening up this facility for us. This is really neat to see events like this here, yeah. And also to the University of North Florida, One Jacks Institute for handling all kinds of logistics for us. Thank you so much. That made it really helpful. That's a lot of people who are here tonight. And we are going to take a moment before we really dig in, and we're going to have a prayer. So Rabbi Bahar is going to come on up right there and give us our prayer for this evening.
Marcus Aurelius was famous for many things. Not only was he a Roman general and a Stoic philosopher, but he was someone whom Nelson Mandela read avidly while he was in prison. It inspired him, I believe, to pursue and continue to, even when faced with life's most difficult hardships, to forge ahead, reach out, and want to make the world a better place. One of the quotes that Marcus Aurelius stated is that a person's worth is measured by the worth of what he values. And I would add to that, in our materialistic society, not how much money is in his bank account or where he works necessarily. Nelson Mandela has inspired us with his insistence the old regime of apartheid would crumble more quickly and fully when faced with the profound effect of revolutionary love and compassion when faced with anger and violence. He has challenged us, even from beyond his grave, to encourage us to think more deeply about the current global situations of which social justice, love, and compassion is truly the answer. The white power regime in South Africa convicted him of conspiring to overthrow their power and handed to him a life sentence. He served 27 years before the growing international support forced South Africa and their apartheid regime to acquiesce. Those same pressures also forced whites-only racist governments into negotiations as it sought to find ways to appease what was occurring around it. And when finally released, after being faced with so many challenges, he did not turn around with anger or hatred. He instead focused on love and compassion as a path to true liberation. Our rabbis teach us, specifically Rabbi Tarfun, that while the work may be almost overbearing, it is not that we are not free to desist from it. Che Guevara once said, "A true revolutionary is motivated by great feelings of love." He was alluding to that same truth, that which our Torah teaches us, the Bible, to love the stranger, to reach out beyond ourselves. It is my prayer tonight that the food that we are about to consume inspire us and give us energy to do that hard work which Nelson Mandela began doing so many years ago, that we pick up the mantle that he put down and we do so with love, kindness, compassion, and grace to ensure that we can tackle this issue of individuals coming out of prison and finding a new home in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. All right, so let's get this party started. Okay, you ready for this? All right, so I give you TEDx Jacksonville extraordinaire, man of many words and talents. His name is Rod Borshade, just like the singer. That's how he told me to say it, Borshade. You just got to listen to this guy.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Roderick Borshade. My father's from Nigeria, so this is so fitting. I have a very interesting story. Be sure to grab a card from me. I'm holding my phone because this poem is really fresh, really, really fresh. And I don't want to mess up anything, so I got to use this crutch. So if y'all bear with me, I want everybody in the room to say, "Rise up." Rise up. Oh, that was nice. Thought y'all was eating. Let's do it again. Everybody say, "Rise up." Rise up. May we rise up like Mandela. May we rise up like Mandela. I was 8 when he was freed and didn't see the things he weathered. 27 years, 6 months, 6 days, casted to an island, locked inside a cage, told that he must stay until he breathed no more. But opening your mind will be the key to open doors. I watched my mama fight a habit she began when she was young. Things will seem impossible until you see them done. Mandela's quotes are affirmations worth repeating to ourselves. I was praying hard for Mom when they unlocked his cell. And if you close your eyes and listen, you could almost hear their praise. People gathered everywhere to form a world parade. Flags of every culture singing songs in a cappella. Global chants erupting. May we rise up like Mandela. May we rise up like Mandela. May we rise up like Mandela. Some things we can't do alone, we have to do together. There was anger, there was rage, guns and knives were raised. Plans were set to pay them back for taking him away from the arms of those who loved him, from his wife and from his kids, from his dreams and aspirations, from the life he tried to live. But as one of the greatest leaders that has ever walked this land, he told them that their guns would not be useful for his plans. He took a stand and said that peace is the only way to start, that he'd still be in prison having hatred in his heart. Forgiveness equals freedom. All that's done is all that's done. We could lose the war counting the battles that we've won. I laid down all my anger. Grandma told me to forgive. She said, your mother's ill, but you still love her while she lives, and I loved her while she lived. It wasn't easy, I recall. But Nelson said that glory's found in rising from your falls. He went from prisoner to president, from shackled down to suited. We rarely see the light within the tunnel going through it. He took his fears and conquered them. His pain was his propeller. Second chances given. Now my mom is so much better. Lessons of forgiveness merged, and she's been writing letters, trying to get a job. I'm awfully glad I never left her. For sometimes she feels low, and I must sit her down and tell her, there's a man who kept his dream and changed this world forever. So don't give up and keep your dream. Reward will follow effort. Madiba went through storms and turned his thoughts into his shelter. When times are tough, we rise with love, and we win because we never give up hope. We rise to show. We rise up like Mandela. Thank you. Thank you. We finally meet. I didn't use my phone. Oh, wow, they're standing up.
So nice to meet you. It's amazing.
Thank you. Was that your introduction?
Yes, thank you. That was my introduction. Wow. I don't even know what to say. Rod, that was so powerful. It's wonderful. Really. I want to welcome everyone here this evening. My name is Khalil Osiris. There are so many people who have come together in an extraordinary way to make this evening possible that it's actually impossible to thank all of them. So I'd just like to start by saying to our planning committee, who made every effort, who sacrificed on every level to make this event possible when everyone was telling us it was impossible with 5 months of planning. And I always felt that there was 5 months of planning, but there was a lifetime of work that came into play in terms of the manifestation of what we are seeing today. My brother from another mother, Kevin Gay, we started a similar journey, but on very different paths 20 years ago. Imagine that. And I know some of you, when you hear prisoner, you think, oh, that's actually not me, but I like those guys, or I like those people. The returning citizens, it's quaint language, but they're ex-cons. I mean, we know them as ex-cons. In fact, an article that was just written, we have the language of ex-cons, and sometimes it's difficult when you hear the language of ex-cons to see the person. The thing that's so extraordinary about Kevin is that he started with the humanity and then dealt with all of the other issues that would be barriers to seeing the person. So I welcome the term formerly incarcerated citizen, ex-con, criminal, all that stuff that people typically really are challenged by. The reason why I don't have a problem with it is because actually I did that and more. Like I deserved when I went to prison. Like I went for something. And I'm telling you this on the front end because so often you're already in a position where we assume the person who's been to prison says, I'm innocent, it was a rigged system, everything's worked against me, I'm a victim. All of those wonderful things, and I call them wonderful because they're true. That is a reality. There's another reality. And that is that some of us recognize that we made choices that put us in harm's way. Some of us recognize that as much as there's a broken system, there are wounded human beings who are making choices from their woundedness. And it puts them at greater risk for all the things that we say are broken in the system. I served 20 years in prison. Started as a 17-year-old. I was a well-behaved kid. Because some of you might imagine, oh, he must have been really rebellious and a problem from day one. Actually, no, I was the kid that every mother wanted to have their daughter bring home. I was the good guy. I always say if I was white, I'd probably had blonde hair and blue eyes. I'd have been blonde and blue, like Kevin. But I had the luck of the Irish. I ended up black. But what I'll tell you is this. I made choices along the way that created a pathway for me to end up in prison, even though I was unconscious of it at the time. And that's hard for many of us to talk about because we know the narrative of what doesn't work in America. We know all the things wrong about America. And yet, when I left America, I realized how Americanized I was. Imagine that you go all the way to Africa and find white people that are more African than you. Because it's not about race. It's also culture. And you can go to places where people understand the culture better than you. And all of the excuses and examples that you used for why you weren't getting ahead where you were, and then you get to a place like Africa and everybody's black from the bottom to the top, and you find you still see discrimination and other kinds of challenges, here's what it makes you realize. Actually, it's part of the human condition. It's not ethnically based. That is the human condition. We mistreat each other. We do bad things to each other. We say hurtful things to each other. We make horrible choices. That's the human condition. It doesn't need to be racialized. It's pervasive. And for those of you who will say, oh, I've never been to prison and you know, that's not my issue, but I'm really supportive of you guys. Let me just say this. In my work, prison is a metaphor for self-imposed limitations. And the majority of people who are in prison or who will go to prison will never see the inside of a jail. We engage in socially sanctioned, self-imposed limitations. Do you know that some of us have even walked into this room this evening and looked at another person because of the way they were dressed or the color of their hair or what we imagined to be their zip code, and we made snap decisions about them? That's much more pervasive, much more difficult to grasp in terms of its damage and its impact on our well-being. When I got to prison, let me tell you something, that was the easy part. I realized I actually was incarcerated before I got arrested. Imagine that. You get to the worst place in your life and you realize that there have been red flags all along the way to tell you that that's where you were headed. So when I got there and I realized I had been incarcerated long before I was arrested, here's the thing. It's because I recognized that the source of my incarceration was not the cell or the prison or the arresting officer or the sentencing judge. I didn't go to prison because I had made a mistake. And I know that's a popular kind of explanation, but I didn't make a mistake. I made a choice. And the reason why I emphasize the fact that I made a choice, because I'm not giving anyone else responsibility for my choices and what can come of the power that I have. We don't teach empowerment. If you're here for empowerment this evening, this is not the place for you. We believe you already have power. The question is, and it's an existential question, meaning that it applies to us no matter what our station or place or title or income level. The question is simply, how am I using my power? Am I using it in the best interests of those who I say I love? Am I using it even in my own best interest? In many instances, we're not. We're simply not. We talk about reducing prison populations. Guess what? The easiest way to reduce the prison population is for those of us who have offended to stop offending. Imagine that. Surprise, surprise. Those of us who have been seen as the problem are in fact now the subject and the solution. When I talked about this to the NFL alumni, Brent, Reese, Greg, Aaron, you immediately said it's a movement. Former Jaguar players. No, the heroes, the ones who entertain us and who suffer and sacrifice. Colette, first African-American coach in the NFL. What am I saying? I'm saying, like Nelson Mandela said, it always seems impossible until it's done. So I served 20 years in prison, and here's what the script is. When it was time for me to get out, you hear all the stories. No one will hire you if you're a formerly incarcerated individual. They won't give you a chance. You have to tick the box. I knew the negative narrative to the T. I knew where the dot to I and crossed the T. Because I had gone to prison at 17, gotten out at 22, and was worse than before I went in, and then went back at 25 years old with a 75-year sentence. Life at 25. And the judge, he looked at me, he said, you know, young man, I took 2 days to figure out how to convict you because usually when boys like you come before our court, we know why they're here. Broken families, missing in action father, drug-addicted mothers, we know the script, poorly educated. None of that's the case with you. You chose to be a criminal defendant, and my only regret is I cannot give you more time. My lawyer jumped up. He was like, this is an outrage. And I looked at the judge, and here's what I said. Thank you. I accept accountability. But I don't just do it rhetorically. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the best choices going forward from this point forward. I had been a teenage father, and let me just tell you this. My son is here today. Son, stand up, please. And my daughter-in-law, and my daughter, and my granddaughter, right. They'll tell you you can't continue to be a father in prison. I challenge that. They'll tell you that, oh, well, this relationship can never be sustained. I challenge that. Do the work. Take ownership for having made the choices that you made and be truthful and authentic with your children and tell them, I didn't make the best choice for you. I was selfish. I didn't consider you in this choice. See, I'm telling you the things, I'm saying this to you because I know many of us, we focus on everything external, what the system hasn't done. What I want us to focus on in this event is, as Madiba said, Nelson Mandela said, each of us can do something to make a difference. Each of us have the power to make a difference. So I sit in a prison cell and wrote at the time she wasn't a doctor, Makaziwe Mandela. Because I'm in prison, I'm following current news. I read ferociously. I was in prison, I saw Makaziwe Mandela is at UMass Amherst on a foreign Fulbright scholarship, the most prestigious scholarship in the world. And her father has inspired me. I'm writing her. Even other prisoners said to me, Osiris, will you stop this nonsense? That woman is not going to write you. Do you realize that on the envelope there's a stamp that says inmate correspondence? Just in case you don't know, because, you know, you're a little delusional, Osiris. You have this thing, optimism, and you think it's just going to all work for you. I'm writing her. Lo and behold, she wrote back. Think about it. So you don't know what can happen in your life until you push the envelope a little bit. Her compassion, her empathy. And I had said to her, you know, you've been to the White House, Hyannisport, the presidents, all of them courting you. Would you like to come to the Black House? We have a minister of defense. We have a secretary of education. I happen to be him. She wrote me and we became pen pals. We never physically met. I went on to earn my bachelor's and master's at Boston University inside prison. And let me just tell you this, my degree doesn't say he was in prison when he earned it. Just so you know. I had a simple philosophy in prison, turn the cell into a classroom and the prison into a university. I did that literally because I was inspired by what Mandela did. 25 years later, I go to South Africa, I'm working, and I didn't just go with anybody. I went with Wynton Marsalis, John Batiste, jazz artists. We're just having fun, loving South Africa, and then I walked into a prison and realized, actually, I'm here for something more than fun. And I remembered the commitment in 1986 that I made to Dr. Makaziwe Mandela and her father that I would one day come out of prison in America, once successful, move to South Africa and work in schools and prisons to honor the contribution he made to me while I was at the bottom of life. I had an epiphany. For me, it was a come to Jesus moment. It was a recognition that all of it had been guided. And that, as the Chinese say, as I was traveling my interesting life, there was purpose in it. So let me just leave with this. I thank all of you for being here this evening. There are some amazing awardees that are going to be honored here this evening. And I'd just like to close actually with a quote, because my dear sister and friend, Dr. Makaziwe Mandela, she got her PhD in anthropology. So I'm going to close with a quote from an anthropologist that I love, Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Thank you.
Thank you.
I met him yesterday. When I left, I was pumped up. I walked into my newsroom, and they could tell my colleagues, what's going on with you? I said, listen to this story. And I told it so many times over and over and over again. It's so inspirational. Just so good. It is just the beginning. So here we go. This is kind of an agenda for the night, okay? This is kind of how it's going to work. We're going to have dinner. And let me kind of give you some dinner instructions before you know what, let me give you dinner instructions after the agenda, okay? Because then everybody will start heading out to get the food. The rest of the agenda is, after dinner, we are going to sit down and visit with the Mandelas right over here and have a conversation and talk about what they think of things going on. And then we're going to recognize some of our change makers here tonight. They have incredible stories that are changing people's lives here in Northeast Florida. And then, because it's a birthday party, we're going to have some cake, and we're going to do some gift giving. We might even sing, okay? I might sing, you might close your ears, we'll see how that goes. So let me give you the dinner instructions. Very simple. There are essentially 3 buffets, okay? Buffet in the back, buffet in the back. If you're sitting on this side, it's suggested you go over to that one. And if you're sitting on this side of the room, it's suggested you go to this one. Anybody in the front row, you can also go to this buffet over here. There is a bar, if you didn't notice it coming in, but there's also another bar in the back over here. And so go ahead, help yourselves, but only when a volunteer comes around and kind of says, your table's now up to go to the buffet. And then that way it won't be a mad rush. But then just make your way back here. We'll enjoy our food that's South African inspired, and then we'll continue with the rest of our night. We're going to ask you, if you aren't already back at your table, to join those fine folks that you've been having dinner with. And we're going to continue on with the rest of our program. So I wanted to tip my hat. I wanted to tip my hat to the band, because it's a band from St. Augustine. It was Ramona and the band. They are so good. And see, I have to give them special props because I live in St. Augustine too. And whenever I can see her play, I try to, because she is so good, Ramona and the band. They're so much fun. Yeah. So at this point, as we're kind of coming back together and continuing our program, I want to, at this point, shift gears and talk about the very honored guest we have tonight, the guest of honor, Makaziwe Mandela, and to Queenie. And why don't you come on up and make your way to the stage? Thank you. Yes, round of applause for them. They came from the other side of the globe, South Africa, to be with us tonight. It was a long, long trip. To Queenie Mandela, Dr. Makaziwe Mandela, and we're going to have you sit right here. Both of you have a microphone. You have a microphone right there. Great. Right, go ahead and have a seat. So we talked earlier today, and I got to know them a little bit. And I always like to start personal before we get into the heavy topics. So one of the things that Queenie told me that she likes and remembers well about her grandfather is he was a storyteller. And so why don't you, we're going to ask you to use the mics, but tell me what you remember about him being a storyteller.
Well, our greatest times with him was spent at the lunch table or at the dinner table. And my grandfather was just a great mimicker of people. So he would tell us about, when he first came to Joburg and when he first met white people.
When he first met white people?
Yeah. How he grew up in the rural area, and how he ran away from an arranged marriage because, he wasn't ready to be married. And just, his experiences in life in general and what he learned.
Yeah, and you told me that you remember him liking family stories. Is that right?
Yes, my father loved, I would say gossip, but family gossip.
Family gossip.
So,
it's okay to talk about family. That's all right.
And so when we were on the table and we were just talking stories, he would tell everybody, don't talk at the same time, because he was actually hard of hearing, couldn't hear properly.
Yeah.
And so he would say, and the reason why he would say that, one person must talk at a time, because he wanted to hear the gossip that was going around in the family. And the other thing is that, he made me laugh because he thought he was the greatest matchmaker.
He thought that he was the greatest matchmaker?
Yeah, matchmaker. So you would see a handsome man and say, you know what, I have a very beautiful granddaughter for you. So that was him.
Did
yes.
he do a good job as a matchmaker?
No,
Oh, okay.
not at all.
I love hearing the inside stuff, don't you? It's so good. It's so good. We're all similar down deep inside. Family stories, all so good. Thank you so much for being here. Jacksonville's very excited. I should say Northeast Florida, the First Coast, is very excited to have you here. So just a few questions here, and one is, I understand Nelson of Nelson Mandela. Nelson wasn't his real name, right? Tell me about this.
My father's real name is Holy Shashla.
Say that again.
Holy Shashla.
Uh-huh.
That's a Xhosa name.
Uh-huh.
And so Holy Shashla literally means one who's brave enough to get honey from an acacia tree or a thorn tree. But colloquially meaning one who challenges the status quo and who's a troublemaker.
Oh my. So, yeah. So he grew into that name.
Yes.
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 Yes. I wonder what, if do parents name their children in South Africa? Do they know what they were doing?
Parents or grandparents named
Uh-huh.
their
Wow.
children in our culture.
They were setting the stage. And then we all just knew him as Nelson. How did he get the name Nelson?
Nelson was actually, we call it a colonial name.
Okay.
Because when he started going to school, the teacher at school, most of the time were white at the time.
Yes.
And so the teacher couldn't pronounce Holy Shashla. And so he named him and said, from today you will be called Nelson.
Aha.
And so my grandmother couldn't even pronounce Nelson. He called him Nelisile, but that's a girl's name.
Oh, it is? Okay, okay. Oh, that's fascinating. All right. So we know the story, right? Going from prison to president. But when he was incarcerated for 27 years, you were a little girl. And
Yes.
so tell me what that was like for you to be a little girl and your daddy incarcerated.
Well, it was, look, at that point in time, I didn't understand everything fully. But my dad went to jail when I was between 6 and 7. And it would be almost another 9 years before I could see him, visit him, because you were not allowed to go and visit a prisoner on Robben Island if you didn't have a dom pass. That's an identity document, because all Africans were required to have a dom pass and carry it all the time, because you could be stopped by the police at any time, and if you didn't have, you were sent to jail.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and you couldn't just wake up one day and say, oh, today I miss my dad, let me go and visit him in prison.
Yeah.
You had to write a letter and apply to the prison commander.
Uh-huh.
So when I turned 16, I applied, and I was granted a visit.
You were?
Yes, I was
Okay.
granted a visit. And I went and visited my dad. And so I was very excited on the boat going to the Robben Island from Cape Town. And I thought I would touch him. So when I got to because there were other visitors there, the prison commander came to me and said, you are not going to go in, you will stay behind, because they didn't allow anybody to see Ronya trial is my father. Didn't want, there was no picture, there was nothing of him. So later he came to me and said, okay, it's your turn now, but you're not to speak in any language except English. So he took me in, and
So this is a room that you were taken
it's a
into?
room.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was surprised that I couldn't touch him. He was behind a glass window,
I see.
and there were intercoms that we could speak through, and we just kissed the glass window. And he said, oh my, you've grown up, stand far away, let me see how far you've grown up. And that was it, and we communicated in English.
How long had it been?
For half an hour.
Oh, for
I
half
haven't
an
seen
hour?
my father for 9 years.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
So, yeah, you had grown up, and he was seeing you
Yes.
grown up.
Oh,
16, you said.
yes.
How about that? That must have been something for him and for you.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure you missed him. You heard stories.
Yes, I did miss him. He would write letters, but you would receive letters that were half of the page was missing, because they would cut off anything that they deemed to be politically related. And you also couldn't write. He was allowed a certain number of letters per year. So you couldn't just write to him at any time.
Oh, really? So there's a limited amount of letters you could write to your
Yes,
father.
Yes.
Did you write?
Yes, I did write.
Yes. Yeah. How about that? I would imagine getting a letter from you was a really neat experience. His little girl. Yeah. your legacy, your father's legacy, your grandfather's legacy, is one that you carry on. And so it's been described with words as freedom, equality, forgiveness, unity. And so we here in our part of the world are going to be talking a lot about Nelson Mandela. We already have, but we're going to be talking a lot more about him in the next few days. So what is it that you think he would want us talking about?
I'll answer that question by telling you a story very quickly.
Okay. Like your father, he's a storyteller, or grandfather.
If you read the first 100 pages of Long Walk to Freedom, you'll really get to understand who my grandfather is and what formed him as a human being. I think that when people read the book, they miss that. So within the 100 pages, it talks about his father. And his father died when he was 9 years old, right? So he didn't necessarily have a chance to get to know him better. But my grandfather talks of my great-grandfather. My great-grandfather was an advisor to the king of the Tembus at the time. And then they had a crisis in leadership. And within the Tembus, you have the great house, and the great house is the one that has a right to inherit the throne. You have the left-hand house, where you get the next heir from if there's no heir from the great house. You have the right-hand house, which is all of the advisors to the king. We come from the right-hand house. That is our lineage, that is our history, that is our legacy. So when there was a crisis in leadership, all of the advisors to the king said, well, we have the option of getting a leader from the left-hand house. And my great-grandfather said, I don't believe that, because I don't believe that there's an appropriate leader who is going to take us to the next generation. I don't believe that the Tembu nation will survive with that type of person. We must choose the most unlikely one, because he's the most prepared to be a king of the Tembus. At that time, that was a completely and utterly controversial decision. My great-grandfather believed that maintaining the status quo was an enemy to progress. He believed in diversity of thought. He believed in getting ideas from everybody else. So that is the lineage that we come from. And my grandfather believed exactly the same thing. That is what he learned from his father. And when his father died, my grandfather went to live with the very same man that my great-grandfather had recommended that he be the regent. Okay? So my grandfather...
Say that again. Say that. I want to make sure everybody got that. Can you say that again?
So the very same man that took care of my grandfather and taught my grandfather to be a man, to become the politician that he became, is the very same man that my great-grandfather recommended that he become king, the next king of the Tembus. Okay? So, but my great-grandfather didn't know what he was doing at the time, correct? He didn't think that he was going to die. So my grandfather talks about how he grew up in the great house, right? He says that you would have people from all walks of life who would come from all over Tembuland, who come in and make their supplications to the king, they'd make their complaints to the king. Some of them were even rude and would even swear at the king. But he would sit there stoically and listen to every single thing that everybody had to say. And he would never respond negatively. Then he would go back and come back and make his own decision as to what the way forward was. That was my grandfather. My grandfather believed in diversity of thought. And he didn't believe that because you had a difference of opinion with him, that you were his enemy or that he had to be rude to you. There were many people. There were many people that my grandfather did not like. There were many people that my grandfather disagreed with, but he never disrespected them. He always spoke to them with dignity and respect. And that is a message that I want to leave with Jacksonville, is that we all come from different walks of life. We all have different thoughts. We may not agree with each other, but we must be able to have these debates with respect and with dignity. And that's how we move forward as societies. And if we want to move forward, we can never, ever maintain the status quo. Ever. We must continue to be disobedient. One of my grandfather's biggest frustrations about us as his grandchildren is that we never follow the rules. And my grandmother and my mother would say, yes, but they learned that from you. We don't have to follow the rules. We don't have to do what everybody else does. We should do things differently. That's how people who've changed the world have managed to be successful. Whether you believe in the Bible or not, the Bible says that we're made in God's image. So we have all of that power. So we have a responsibility to use that power in a very positive way. That's the message that I want to leave with Jacksonville.
Would you like to add anything to that?
I think there's nothing to add. Honestly.
She did a good job, yeah.
You did a good
Yeah.
job, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So I'm going to, let's talk about why you're here and how you got here. Because you're in Jacksonville. She told me today she really didn't know much about Jacksonville until very recently, you know? And that's fine. I'm sure there are places in South Africa we don't know about. And so this begs the question, right? How in the world did these two ladies get here? Now we know part of the story. It's because of Khalil Osiris that you heard earlier today, the one who was in prison and the one who decided boldly to write to Makaziwe. I got to ask you, when you got that letter that said, inmate, what did you think? What did you do?
Well, initially I thought, this must be a fresh young man,
A
taking
fresh young
time.
man.
Yes. And, but something, a little voice inside said, write back and see what is going to happen.
I'm so glad you did.
And I did write back. And I think as a big sister, I gave him words of encouragement. But I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would meet Khalil anywhere in the world. So when I was at the supermarket called Woolworths in South Africa, and there was this, again, fresh, arrogant American who said, hello, are you Makaziwe? And I said, who wants to know? And he said, do you remember the prisoner who wrote to you in America? And I said, yes. And I said, no. And he says, Khalil, it's me, it's Khalil. I said, oh no, it cannot be.
Really?
And I was so shocked, but I was happy to see him.
Yeah, because the last time you communicated was, what,
Yes.
25 years before that?
But, and I was saying, what are you doing in South Africa? I said, I'm living here now. I said, okay, let's meet up for coffee. I went home and I said to my daughter, you know what happened today? I said, no, Mom. I said, I was in Woolies. And there I met, this guy I used to write to in prison. And he said, Mom, you used to write to convicts? And
You said that to Queenie?
Mom, what were you doing writing to convicts?
So, and really the reason we are here today is because of the work, and as Khalil, of the work that Khalil came to South Africa to do, working with schools and prison reform, and really believing in this work. And so we've kept communication, and Khalil is also a board member of our family foundation. And so he invited Kevin to come to South Africa to meet with us. And I actually have to say, I am thoroughly impressed, humbled by the work that Kevin is doing.
That Kevin Gay.
Yes.
Who leads Operation New Hope? He's the leader of Operation New Hope. Founder.
And I think for me, personally, it was an easy decision to make to come here.
Oh.
Because when when Kevin gave me a bundle on Operation New Hope, when I read the stories, I was actually touched by the fact that he was on a bus. Remember the significance of a bus ride in this country. And he was able to exercise empathy on a young black man who had just been released from prison, who was fearful whether I would be accepted back home by my wife or anything. And what they did for that young man, it was just a little act of kindness, but it went a long way to save a life, to save a family. And so it was no-brainer for me to come here.
It was a no-brainer.
It was a no-brainer. It was, for me, I am trying in my little own way. I can never fit in my father's shoes because they're big shoes.
Yes.
But I'm determined as a daughter that in my own little way, I have to keep that legacy of my dad alive and the values that he espoused. And I come also to believe that we ourselves as human beings give opportunity for evil to seep in. And that's why we are where we are in the world around. It's not just America. They're struggling.
Because you think we allow evil to seep in.
But we are allowing it. And there's no need for us to be listening to negative news 24 hours a day. We need to switch off at some point in time. And I think we need to use our collective power to say, we will not accept listening to violence, bad news. We want good stories on our media. Because if we can be bombarded by evil and it turns us inside out, we can also be bombarded by good. Because as my father said, no person is born hating another person. Everybody is taught to hate. And if we can be taught to hate, we can be taught to love. So,
Good stuff.
this country was built on the hope of harnessing the good in everybody. That's why all of us want to emulate America. We don't want to emulate the evil of America. We don't want to see an America that enhances differences. We want the America that the founding fathers of America worked hard to build. And I think we do not have to think in isolation and be insular. No person is an island. We say in the Xhosa idiom or African idiom, umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. You are because of the people and the community in which you live. So if we build good communities, we're going to build better human beings. And for me, we need to work together as communities, as neighborhoods, as society, and also across bridges, across the Atlantic, across oceans. That is what is going to save this world. This is how we create a better future for ourselves and our children.
Bombarded with good, bombarded by good. I like that. And building bridges across an ocean. Thank you. There are people here in our corner of the world who are bombarding others with good. And they're building bridges in their communities. And you are here with us tonight to honor some of those people and give some of these people acknowledgement and an award for what they're doing. And at this point, I kind of want to just explain that the award is actually, it's not a trophy, it's not something that you can put on your desk. You know what the award is? The award is a framed piece of art. It's that. Isn't that neat? And which is from the House of Mandela. Is that correct? Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit?
Those framed,
Oh, use your microphone. There you go.
those framed pieces of hand are actually my father's right hand and left hand print.
I didn't know that. Wow. Oh my goodness, isn't that neat?
And when Khalil was talking to me about this, I said, we as House of Mandela will donate these pieces of art. because my father has said, with the hands we can do good, but with the hands we can also do bad things. But for those who are getting these awards today, I think from us as House of Mandela, we want to say, every time you look at that painting, think about an act of kindness that you will do each and every day. But it's for all of us. When we wake up in the morning, let us ask ourselves, what good am I going to do today? Little acts of kindness. That is all that's required from all of us.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Your father's hands. Your father's hands. That's great. So we are going to, at this point, we're going to shift gears. And I think part of the honor, truly, part of the award, is that the people that we're going to talk about aren't just getting this beautiful piece of artwork that now has so much more meaning than I've even realized, but they're going to be receiving it from Tukwini and Makaziwi. So that's extra special in itself. I know, you can go ahead and clap. I think that's very nice. Want to also note that you and Khalil have decided that all of the proceeds from tonight will go toward Operation New Hope. And yeah, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more tonight, but let's go ahead and bring up some of these people and talk about and show what they have been doing, some of these people that we're honoring, okay? So at this point, just sit here with me and let's talk about this first person, who we've kind of talked about a little bit already, Kevin Gay, right? Okay, all right, so Kevin Gay founded Operation New Hope. He did this 20 years ago, and he's been running it for 20 years. And he essentially, I mean, because I know you all know this, but he has helped so many people coming out of prison. They've got a criminal record. What do they do now? How do they get a job? And do they even know, if they didn't have a criminal record, how to present themselves at interviews? And do they know how, the protocols of work, getting there on time, leaving when they're supposed to leave? I mean, basic stuff that doesn't just come when you're born. It needs to be taught and instilled. And Kevin Gay is making sure that this happens for so many people in our community. And as a St. Augustine resident, I'm very excited that Operation New Hope is moving into St. Augustine in St. Johns County this week. Yeah. And so it's being recognized and it's being noticed. And so at this point, let's take a little bit of a closer look at Kevin Gay.
Hello, my name is Kevin Gay, CEO and founder of Operation New Hope. And I could not be more excited about tonight and having the opportunity to be the recipient of the House Mandela Award of Freedom. Mandela's voice lives on today because he continuously raised the bar of the definition of freedom throughout his life, both personally and for his nation. He taught us that freedom is not a place where we rest, it's really an ascension to unity among all humans. It is the message of encouragement and of hope. At Operation New Hope, we are in the business of providing hope. And I think for so many of us, no matter what our situation, hope provides us with the critical stepping stone to freedom. Mr. Mandela, your legacy continues to breathe life and hope into freedom fighters all over the world. Wherever there is injustice, there will be those who fight for freedom. And those who fight for freedom know who Nelson Mandela is. And we are all truly inspired by your incredible life of sacrifice, service, and great accomplishments. So happy birthday, and thank you for giving us the great gift of your wonderful family to help keep your great legacy of hope moving forward today.
Kevin Gay. Congratulations. And so at this point, we're going to have the four of you stand over by the piece of artwork, the award, and take pictures. Very nice. Congratulations. So the three of you can remain on stage while we work on looking at the next honoree tonight. And you know what? Let's sit down. It's comfortable. Sit down. There you go. So our next person tonight is Jennifer Brown. She is the director of KIPP Schools Jacksonville, and she has made it her mission to really, touch base with the children in our communities and work at finding out what their dreams are and helping them reach those dreams. What dreams did you have when you were a little kid? Were they within reach? Were they out of reach? Well, she's the person who's helping so many kids here in our area who may not have any of that within reach. And she's making sure that she is making change in our community for our youth. So let's take a look now at an incredible woman, Jennifer Brown.
I am Dr. Jennifer Brown, the Executive Director of KIPP Jacksonville Schools. KIPP is an acronym. It stands for Knowledge is Power Program. When I think about Nelson Mandela, I think about stubborn optimism. Though I am in prison, I'm going to remain stubbornly hopeful and optimistic that change is going to come, and the change that is necessary for all people to benefit. Both freedom and service really resonated with me. The freedom that comes with choices, right, as a result of having had a really great education. This community is beautiful, it is resilient, and it is gritty and brilliant. And when we humble ourselves and adopt a posture of service, we remember that, and I think we will do right by the community. I am absolutely blown away that I am going to receive the inaugural House of Mandela Reflecting Freedom Award. I just could not be more humbled and excited and just amazed. Would have never in my life imagined that I would be getting this.
Wonderful. Jennifer Brown. Congratulations, congratulations. And will the four of you gather around the artwork, and we'll take some pictures. Our next honoree is Melissa Nelson, the state attorney. And yes, clap, indeed. In order to tell you about the importance of her work on the eve of Nelson Mandela's birthday, I gotta tell you about somebody else. His name is Clifford Williams. Clifford Williams was put in prison for a crime he did not commit. He served how many years? 42 total years in prison? 42 total years in prison for a crime he did not commit. Melissa Nelson was instrumental in his release very recently. Yes. Not only is Melissa Nelson here tonight, Clifford is here tonight too. So Clifford, will you stand for us? He is here with his family. I don't know where he's where he is? No? Okay, all right. Oh, he went to the restroom? Oh, no. Okay, you know what? We're coming back to Clifford, okay? All right, just pretend that never happened. Don't say anything to him, okay? We'll just pretend that didn't happen. Okay, all right, is he here? Mr. Clifford Williams. So we are just honoring you tonight, Clifford. We want to tell the important work of Melissa Nelson by sharing your story. So that's what we're doing. And we are just so thankful you're here. He's here with his family, his daughters. And so we're so thankful you're here. His story is incredible. And so, as we mentioned, Melissa Nelson did some really instrumental work to do that. And so let's take a look at Melissa Nelson.
I'm Melissa Nelson. I'm the state attorney for the 4th Judicial Circuit here in Florida. When I think about Nelson Mandela and his life, work, and teachings, the thing that stands out most to me is his unwavering commitment to the values he held dear. So Nelson Mandela stood for many things, and the thing that I think best describes my work is service. I am both energized and excited to serve the community I live in and where I raise our children, and hopefully through my service contribute in some small part to make it a better place. If he were here, the first thing I'd say to him is happy birthday. And then the next thing I'd say to him is thank you. He has left a powerful legacy and example, and I'd say thank you to his family as well for carrying on his important work and vision. His name stands for ideals. Universally. The House of Mandela Reflecting Freedom Award and the fact that I've been chosen as a recipient is just incredibly humbling.
Melissa Nelson. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And with the four of you gather around the artwork, we'll make sure to document it in photographs. Congratulations. Our fourth honoree tonight is Darnell Smith. He is the market president for Florida Blue of North Florida. And see, he does some interesting things where he really ties corporations to communities, to nonprofits, to make things happen. And he's working in neighborhoods that are dealing with poverty, dealing with hunger, and he's he's making sure that the change, as you all mentioned, in communities, he's making sure that that happens and that people are able to help make that change take place. Let's look at Mr. Darnell.
My name is Darnell Smith. I am the market president of North Florida at Florida Blue, and I am so appreciative of the opportunity to receive this Corporate Impact Award. To be mentioned in the same sentence as Mr. Mandela is absolutely an honor. When I think of the life and the legacy of Mr. Mandela, what I think of most is when he came out of prison, he had the ability to forgive his oppressors. If Mr. Mandela was here today, I would first say thank you. Thank you for all that you have done. Thank you for your courage, your conviction, your love. You have demonstrated what love really is, not only for your neighbor, but for all of mankind. And when I think about your legacy and how it has allowed us to remember you for all that you've done, I quite frankly think you are alive and well. And happy birthday.
Darnell Smith. Congratulations, congratulations. And we can take some pictures now as they gather around the artwork. Yes, yes. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, Kelly, I'm going to have you come over here, okay? I'm going to change things up. Pardon me, I'm changing things up. But I'm going to ask you to stay for just a second, okay? All right. So, our amazing people who are doing amazing things, but I loved how you said, what are the things we can do when we wake up in the morning and we think, what can I do? I'm not Darnell Smith. I'm not Kevin Gay. But what can I do tomorrow when I wake up? And so that's what I'm taking away from tonight. You know, what can we do? How can I treat people with dignity? I want to be treated with dignity. How can I treat others with dignity? So thank you. So at this time, we're kind of wrapping things up here. You can kind of feel that going on. But I told you this is a birthday party, right? Yes. Now, so what's a birthday party without some birthday cake, right? And so at this time, we have a very interesting birthday cake that we're going to ask Lee. Is Lee here? Okay, yeah, Lee, come on up here on stage. Lee is going to bring this cake up, and we would like for the three of you to blow out the candles, okay? So we're going to sing. I'm going to lead. Oh, one more time. Lee is a graduate of Operation New Hope. Yes. Yes. That's right. So we have a birthday cake with the candles, and let's sing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Nelson Mandela. Happy birthday to you. Make a wish. Make a wish. There we go. That's fantastic. There's a little picture of Mandela, of Nelson Mandela on the cake there. People are taking pictures. So isn't that neat? So we're going to have cake brought to you. I mean, you want some cake, right? And so we're going to have some of this cake brought to you. We had this fantastic South African flag made out of cupcakes. I don't know if you saw it. But so now we're going to eat it, of course, right? And so our volunteers are going around giving out some of the cake there for us. And as we do that, I want you to be thinking about gifts, because gift giving is part of a birthday, right? Yeah, so we have a gift. And right now, Makaziwi, I don't think you knew this was coming, but we have a gift from the Jaguars Foundation. Is Peter Ranson here? Rancine, I know it's Rancine. Rancine. Peter with the Jaguars Foundation. He's here. They have a little something for you. Magaziwi, they have something for you. And so as people are getting their cake, we got former players from the Jaguars. Yes, indeed. They're coming up too. Come on up, guys. So a gift here, all right? I'm sorry. Would you like a microphone?
Sure. Well, good evening, everyone. It's our pleasure to. Yes, is Coach Collette here? Yeah, come on up.
We also have an NFL, the first African-American NFL coach.
Female coach, absolutely. Yes, Colette, join us. Come on, right in here. Dr. Mandela, on behalf of my colleagues, Mega Perrick, who's our chief legal counsel here at the Jaguars, the representatives here, which include Aaron Beasley and Damon Jones, and I just want to let everybody know when Damon tells me to do something, I do it. Okay, just in case anybody has a question. And Aaron and the NFL Players Association, who have made a strong commitment to social justice in our country, as well as the NFL and Shad Khan, our team owner. The work of Operation New Hope in our city provides hope in the lives of many who have been isolated in our community, sometimes for years in our incarceration. Equity, equal rights, a true democratic process, economic reform, these are the values that both you and your father and grandfather worked for. And they are values that we continue to work for today. Thank you. On behalf of team owner Shad Khan, please accept this Jaguars jersey as a memento of your visit. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. This is neat stuff. Okay, so you got the cake, right? And we're giving gifts. Of course, I'm going to ask you to consider giving a gift to Operation New Hope. This is a fundraiser, and you have heard a little bit about the good work that they do. And so we are now wanting you to consider, as you watch a video that tells you a little bit more about Operation New Hope, we want to show you that and consider your gift.
And then when I did get my second chance, it was just like, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna do it, you know? So I knew at that point that I had to step up because that's not the life that I wanted to live.
I've been homeless in Jacksonville for the last 3 years, living on the beach. 6 months clean and serene. And Operation New Hope is teaching me a lot.
Thank you, O-N-A. I thank God for O-N-A.
Second chances matter. Khalil said, Operation New Hope is trying to make Jacksonville the city of second chances. It needs a community behind it. And at this point, they have a goal. I double-checked this when I read it, but their goal is $100,000 to spread the work that's going on here to other places. It's already starting. I mean, Tampa. This week, it's moving to St. Johns County. This, as he said, is a program that he has never seen work so well anywhere else. It is one of the best in the world. There are really good programs out there. And if you are able to make a gift tonight to Operation New Hope, you'd be part of the change that's taking place in the lives of the people you just saw, like the woman singing. She was so happy for her second chance. So there are several ways you can do this. You can text your donation. They have gone high-tech with their fundraising abilities. And we're going to put on the screen the information about how to text. So it's text Reflecting Freedom to 44321 to give, okay? And if you'd rather write a check, if you'd rather not do a texting donation and you want to use either cash or credit card, that is available for you to do tonight as well. There are going to be people in the back. There are maybe four people waving in the back. They're standing up waving, and they will gladly take a donation of any kind that you'd like to give. We are a varied crowd here. You may feel like you don't have a lot of money to give, but you may have a little. And if you want to help, Operation New Hope would really appreciate it, and so would the rest of the community. And if you have more and are willing to give more, that's fantastic too. So again, the options are texting a donation, Reflecting Freedom to 44321 to give, or with any of the volunteers who are in our back area, you can talk with them about how to donate either tonight or another time. But again, they have this very lofty goal of $100,000 that they're trying to meet because they know this works. You're not given to something that isn't working, which is really kind of neat, really special. You want to give money to something that works, right? I got a lousy vacuum cleaner at home. Man, that was $40 down the drain. You want to give to something that works. And I know that's just kind of corny. But anyway, Operation New Hope is changing people's lives. And there are testaments and testimonials about it. Here's your chance to give in the name of Nelson Mandela International Day, Jacksonville. Our first time to celebrate it. So at this point, we started off with a prayer from a rabbi, and we're going to end with a prayer. That's just kind of how Operation New Hope works, I've noticed. And Father Lowe, would you please come up? He's going to lead us in a closing prayer.
I know that all of you, like me, have been inspired and motivated tonight, but we're going to need some help, and we need to call on our Heavenly Father to help us, so please join me as we pray for a moment. Oh, Heavenly Father, we come here this evening, and we just want to thank you. We want to thank you for the beautiful gathering and the fellowship together tonight. We want to thank you for the great work that Kevin Gay and Operation New Hope are doing to transform the lives of people all over. We want to thank you that you placed on planet Earth Nelson Mandela and his beautiful family. But we also know, Lord, that you have told us from the very beginning that to whom much is given, much is expected. That you have blessed us to be a blessing in this world. That you have challenged us, like you did in the heart of Nelson Mandela, to make a difference in this world. And we cannot make a difference in this world if we're not willing to be different in this world. And so, Lord, speak to us. Let us hear the words of Nelson Mandela when he said and challenged all of us that the fundamental concern for everyone would go a long way to making this world a better place. And so let those words, let that echo of concern speak in our actions tonight. That yes, we've enjoyed this banquet, and yes, we've been mesmerized by being with the Mandelas and the great work of Operation New Hope, but you told us to go, that we are called to go and make a difference. So speaking to us and to remind us that your eyes are our eyes to see the needs of this world. That your voice should be our voice to speak to the injustices that we see in this world. That your ears are our ears to hear the struggle and the plight of people. And that, yes, oh Heavenly Father, your legs are our legs to not sit still, to not remain with the status quo, but to run and to make a difference in this world. So empower us right now, inspire us and encourage us to go out and to make a difference and to make Nelson Mandela's dream come true. In your holy name we pray, amen.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Father Lowe. At this point in time, we're going to wrap things up. Thank you so much for being here. I know I just felt really treated when I was asked to be a part of this. And I hope that you've had a good night and you've been inspired and have learned something. I've learned to bombard with good. Yeah. Treat people with dignity, because you want to be treated with dignity. And start small every morning. So at this time, we are going to dismiss, but if you have not purchased any jewelry and you're kind of interested in what's coming from the House of Mandela, artwork is upstairs, jewelry is downstairs. If you are a part of the VIP program tonight and did not get a picture with the Mandelas, they will be upstairs as well, and we'll be able to take a few more pictures with you tonight. And so we will reconvene after that. Thank you so much for your support. And so here's to real, positive, effective change, just like what we saw with Nelson Mandela. Good night.